Everyone, welcome to Ask the Techsperts. This is a special presentation today in honor of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have our both Amanda and Jackson are going to be presenting today. I don't think anybody here knows Jackson yet, so do a brief introduction of him. Jackson Bubolz is the owner of Elevated Insurance. Over the past 4 years, Elevated has earned over 100 5-star Google reviews by focusing on client experience, industry-leading communication, and education around what coverage families and businesses need to be protected in all situations. Prior to owning the brokerage, Jackson worked at Zywave here in Research Park, Milwaukee, where he met with over 1,000 insurance brokers. He asked repeatedly what they were doing to be stronger advocates for their clients and how they were handling emerging risks like cyber liability. When almost no brokers wanted to retool and relearn how to address modern risks created by our internet-connected society, Jackson saw an opportunity to bring value both to business owners and also the community at large. Please enjoy a brief overview of how Elevated Insurance can protect your business from risks your broker may have never even mentioned to you. And today he's going to focus specifically on cyber liability, or how insurance can protect you from hackers.
Thank you, Michelle. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So today we're here to talk about cyber liability, what it is, why we should care about it, all that kind of stuff. So the biggest thing about cyber liability is it's grouped into this category called emerging risk. And essentially emerging risk is things that are becoming more and more prevalent in our industries, but maybe weren't even a thing 20 or 30 years ago. So emerging risks are a very interesting niche in insurance because, well, I'll tell you. So cyber liability is one of these emerging risks that we see over and over again. And the reason why I think it's such an opportunity for my insurance brokerage to expand into the commercial space, working with like attorneys, medical organizations, doctors, lawyers, anyone who has a lot of sensitive data, is that the majority of insurance agents or brokers are in their early 60s. A majority of them learned insurance in the 80s and 90s, and the majority of them haven't wanted to learn about the newest risks that are trending, because it's a whole new game and a whole new type of thing to study. So what I've found in my time talking with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of insurance brokers is that a lot of times cyber liability is just one of these things that they know it's out there, they know it's probably important, but they don't want to get into it. Their clients don't want to talk about it, so they just kind of sweep it under the rug. Another area in this emerging risk bucket, which I won't talk about hardly at all today, but I just want to touch on, is employee practices liability, which is essentially sexual harassment insurance. So these are two buckets that when you get these, generally older males who have been in the industry for 40, 50 years, these are areas they don't want to get into. So these are areas that we at Elevated Insurance handle quite often, because it is incredibly important in our society, and areas that generally is a pretty big gap in education. So when we talk about cyber liability, how is it emerging? How did it become important? So back as early as a decade ago in 2010, it literally was stealing information. So someone might go into a computer that's unlocked and just lift the information out of the computer that they wanted. Things have changed a little bit. 2015, hacking became more prevalent. And hacking is somebody going into your computer system and taking the information they want and leaving. And now, currently, since 2018 and ongoing, the most prevalent form of cyber risk is phishing, where it is the burglar, if you will, essentially tricking the person into giving them the information that they want, or the information that they need to get into the system whenever they want to. So these are the most common types of cyber liability issues that we run into. The majority of them are coming from weak passwords. 81% of us have what would be considered a weak password, which is something that is easy to guess and may be repeated across multiple platforms. And then another thing that's a huge issue is social engineering, which is essentially somebody calls you, somebody emails you, somebody asks you to give them this sensitive information, which can then unlock a system. And by being very smooth operators, essentially, people are giving them that information. So those are the things that we're most concerned about right now. Ways that we can proactively get in front of this, work with professionals like tech labs, work with people who address this stuff all the time. So these aren't my spheres of expertise, but things like malware, firewall, spam, and you see it there, antivirus patches, all these things are different solutions and strategies that an IT professional can have you prepared for on the front end so that nothing bad ever happens. Other things are taking some time to work through not only your own, but also with your staff, understanding what strong passwords are. I know I did an event with Roger. I heard him speak in like February, and he went on a little bit of a tangent, but he was talking about, this is how to build a strong password, and this is what to think about. So I know he knows how that stuff works, and I know the Tech Labs team can help you with that. Being able to understand and identify what phishing looks like, so just being aware of when it's happening, and training those who are touching information to understand what an attack might look like, what phishing might look like, and just be aware so we can be ahead of it. So these are things proactively we can do, but sometimes things happen and someone still gets in. So, the data is showing that 80% of breaches are happening to small businesses, not big businesses. The way that activity is trending, it's not if it will happen to us, it's when it will happen to each business. I can speak to this very intimately. I mean, I maybe have 40, 50 business clients, and everyone else is like personal lines and families that I work with. But with that small subset of businesses I'm working with, we have gone through a ransomware incident where we had my client got locked out of his computer and everything was shut down. So I'll touch on that a little bit, but this stuff does happen. It's really it's becoming more and more prevalent, and again, it's something that most insurance people aren't really comfortable discussing right now with their clients. So I'll just go through what some of these coverages look like, and then we can open up for questions here. So data breach liability. So that is saying, okay, something happened. We need to figure out how it happened, why it happened, and where the attack came from, which is going to cost some money. Court fees. If you lose your client's information, now especially think about if you have medical information, financial information, social security numbers, personal information, that type of thing. If you lose that for a client, who's a business who then has their client's information, there's probably going to be lawsuits. Data breach liability is going to help cover some of those court fees. And also if it's proven that you're negligent, maybe you just didn't know that it was wrong, or maybe you knew that you should be doing something more and have let it slide. But if there's fines or if there's loss of business, if you're down, you're probably not going to be operating at the same capacity as you usually do. These are all things that data breach liability coverage speaks to. Data breach response. That's helping to figure out on the front end, okay, how are we going to handle this situation? And then moving forward from there, paying out a ransom if there is a ransom. So my friend is he's a chiropractor. He owns a small chiropractic firm. Went to work one day and his system was totally locked out. And they said, hey, it's going to be $2,300 to be able to get back into your information. And he's kind of like, yeah, buzz off, guys. I'm not going to do this. He calls his IT guy. Doesn't have a whole lot backed up. And they really can't get around it. And 24 hours later, they get another message saying now it's $4,600. And we know from the hackers that if we pay them, they give the information back. Otherwise, there's no value in having a ransom. So how this ended up looking is filing a claim for $4,600 in ransom for downtime for clients who didn't get their text reminders for appointments. So that lost business, and then also recouping the IT professional fees, because there's a lot of work that went into, even after once it was unlocked, putting the system back together again. So these are the types of things that data breach response is going to go into, letting everyone know that you've been hacked. So both clients and vendors and your vendors' clients, letting them know that something had happened, and then also the expenses of monitoring for 24 to 48 months after that. The final one is cyber liability. This is for much bigger organizations. This is when we have, I recommend kind of like a standard type data breach insurance plan for most small businesses. Cyber liability, a full-blown policy here, is going to be for much bigger organizations. This is really when we're handling a lot of sensitive information, a lot of medical data, a lot of personal information. And this is going to protect against both losses that happen to your clients if someone were to be hacked, and then also losses that happen to you if your business experiences one of these losses. So just things to think about. Breaches happen all the time. It's getting more and more common. So talking with your current broker to make sure that you have the coverage that you need, that you have a game plan, that you have a company like Tech Labs in place where you can prep for a breach, and then if a breach does happen, that you have a backup plan and a recovery plan ready to go. And also the sexual harassment piece is also bucketed in this area where most brokers just aren't talking about it. So I want to make sure people know that it is emerging risk and that there are ways to solve for it. So I am a broker. I work with several different carriers. Erie and Chubb are kind of my go-tos with the data breach liability and the cyber liability. Again, Elevated Insurance, we've been around about 4 years. We're a leader in cyber liability risk mitigation. We talked about having a lot of carriers. We have some pretty good reviews, and we're very plugged into the community. Every time we run a quote, we make a donation. So that's led to quite a bit of monetary donations, and also we organize quite a few community projects throughout the year. We want people to feel proud of the insurance they have, so we have these types of programs in place. So thank you guys for learning a little bit about cyber liability. What questions do you have for me?
What companies have you given money back to, Jackson?
So I work with local organizations on kind of a rotating scale. So let me see if I can get my as far as monetarily, this is who we're working with this year. Stop share. Okay. So last month was ALS research. So we donated $360 to that cause. August was NAMI, and the NAMI walk is happening this Saturday. So if you guys are looking for something to do Saturday, out at Foxbrook Church, they're doing the NAMI walk. And you can see the other organizations. So each month we rotate. This month, any quotes we run will be donated to United Way of Waukesha and Milwaukee counties.
It's awesome that you're able to give back like that. Had you guys ever heard of cybersecurity insurance before today's presentation? Has anyone heard of that? I'm seeing lots of no's, Jackson. So you got the word out at least of what it is and what the importance of it is. How long has cybersecurity insurance been around? Do you know?
That's a great question. So, I mean, it's still emerging now. Erie is like more of a regional carrier, and their offering has been in place for a while. Chubb has been a leader in the cyber liability, so more like big business space, for 15 years. There's been cyber insurance for probably 25 years. But about 15 years ago is when the big businesses really realized that they had to have a plan in place, because if you get attacked, you'd much rather be paying a little bit each month than have to pay for the one loss when it happens.
That makes sense. So do you just work with people then on what is a recommended amount that they should be paying then based on their circumstance?
Yeah, so we look at number of clients, number of files, and things like that. The vast majority of my clients, I just want to make sure that they have more of this data breach and data liability in place, so that if they do get ransomware, if they do get hacked, they have enough to kind of get back on their feet and it doesn't shut them down. So that's really where I start. The cyber liability piece would really come in as a bigger organization. So most of my conversations don't circle around that, but it is a piece of the puzzle.
Could I interject a comment?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does anybody else have questions? Go ahead.
I'm retired as a physician, but Chubb Insurance took care of the majority of our problems, and I was well pleased. Excuse me, my doorbell just rang. I have to go to the doorbell.
Okay.
But there was an advocate for Chubb Insurance.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions or things to ask about the insurance side of cybersecurity?
All right, cool. Again, I would just encourage anyone who owns a business, making sure that you have something in line so that you're not caught holding the bag completely if there is a breach. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have them on the road.
Jackson, would you mind throwing your contact information in
Oh,
the chat so that if
yeah,
people have any
absolutely.
questions, that they can get a hold of you?
Got my email, and I'll put the quote link up there too.
Thank you so much for presenting, Jackson.
Thank you guys for having me. This is great.
That was a really informative presentation that I hadn't known a lot about before that. So now we're going to move on to Amanda's presentation. She's going to be presenting on what everyone needs to know about cybersecurity. Jackson has spoken with us about the insurance side of how you protect yourself if something goes wrong, and Amanda's going to talk to us about the more technical side of how to protect yourself before something goes wrong, what do you do after something goes wrong, and how do you know something went wrong, kind of a thing. So Amanda's been a part of Tech Lab since 2013. She's our Director of Operations. She had got her master's in instructional technology. For Tech Lab, Amanda does business development, sales, and marketing, but she also handles has seen a lot of computers with viruses and other kinds of cybersecurity issues come through the doors of Tech Lab in that time. And so today she's going to be sharing with us her knowledge about that.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Let me share my screen. Okay, so what everyone should know just in general about cybersecurity. So cybersecurity overall is a method to protect yourself, the systems and the data that you have from an online digital attack. This can happen through email, this can happen with a phone call, this can happen in a wide variety of ways, maybe clicking on something. But that is just, in general, cybersecurity is a way to protect yourself, the data that you work with, from an attack. So if you are attacked, you're like, why would I need to know about cybersecurity? So if you are attacked with through cybersecurity, you can lose information. There's financial costs, as Jackson had kind of mentioned to us before. Maybe the cost to pay the attackers, the cost to fix the problem, the loss of revenue. And as Jackson said, it can happen to anyone and at any time. And these days, it's becoming more of a when this is going to happen instead of a if this is going to happen. And so in general, anytime that you share information with anybody else, you should be careful of how you are doing that. And information is shared in so many ways these days as well. So consider that. And that's in general, whether you're an individual or whether you own a business, cybersecurity can affect you. And we've probably seen that too through like credit cards. So many people have gotten hacked as individuals. I even remember seeing like Target's gotten hacked and other big corporations. So it's definitely out there. Okay, so how would you know if you are a victim of a cyber attack? So things that you should kind of look for as red flags. First of all, if you are normally able to access information and then all of a sudden you can't, you should be having a red flag going in your head because something's different, something's wrong. As you're watching your financial records, if you have charges on there that you didn't make, that's definitely a red flag. Maybe your computer starts acting weird and it wasn't this way before, and so now it's like, something's not right here. Another kind of could be a red flag there. Potentially, the records will show that people are using the system and they normally don't have access to your systems. So if maybe you have it segmented, or maybe somebody has access to one thing and now they can't, just check that as well. Sometimes you're going to get a message that says you've been hacked. If you're clicking on an email and it might happen that way, or sometimes people are clicking on the internet and your computer starts like blaring at you, beep, beep, beep. That can be an attack as well. And sometimes you may not even realize any of these things have happened, and you could still be the victim of a cyber attack. Again, maybe big corporations, and maybe you're related tangentially through that. So something to keep in mind that way. Okay, so as we've been saying, it's a matter of when, not if. The first thing, there's two ways to do this. You can be proactive, or you can be reactive. So when it happens is when you start being reactive, and what do you do? And I mean, I've even been on the phone with some people and they make it sound so urgent and so fast. Like that's how they're getting you. They're getting you by reacting to your emotions, wanting you to do it right now. This is super important, and it's going to be something like your energy bill isn't paid, and so you're going to be shut off, or something that's commonplace, or like Microsoft calling you, or Google calling you, or even the IRS calling you. None of those people are going to call you. They're all going to contact you a different way. So kind of think of that first. So that's being reactive, and then dealing with the aftermath of it all after that. If you're proactive, then first of all, you're going to have cybersecurity insurance, just like what Jackson presented on, and you can follow the steps that are put in place that way. You also have an IT expert on your side, and we'll talk about the things that we can provide for you as well. And if you are being hacked or called upon that way, make sure you call in an expert. So if you're just not sure, we've had several clients who have hung up the phone and then hop on the phone with us and say, this is what's happening. And we're like, yeah, you did the right thing. Turn off your computer. Or yes, we're here. We'll help you. Here's the next step. And so we can walk through those different steps with you as well if you do get hacked. So if you're not sure, honestly, it's probably a good idea just to hang up with them. That way, especially if they're getting access to your computer, you shut that access off. And shutting down your computer is usually a good thing as well. Again, you turn off their access to your information, and then you can take the next steps from there. Okay, so I kind of talked a little bit about some of this, but how can you prevent one? So think about your backups. Do you have any in place? If you don't, then it's time to get some of those in place so that you don't lose as much data. Jackson talked about one of his clients, and, if he didn't have as many backups done, like Jackson maybe alluded to, then, he's going to have lots to recover and redo, versus if you do regular backups, and even if you have some backups, then you're going to have less to recover later. And then same with cybersecurity insurance. Cybersecurity insurance can help you, as Jackson mentioned at the end, pay a little bit over time so that when it happens, you don't have to pay a huge $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 attack on what you're doing. You're paying it over time to help you with this insurance. And then you need to make sure that overall your computer and your network are secure. So this includes things by having antivirus, and not only having it, but making sure that it's being run on a regular basis. If you don't have a paid subscription, you have to be the one to make sure that's being run regularly. If you are doing a paid subscription, then the software should be running on a regular basis so that it's working and running. If you don't have that in place, TechLab would be happy to help you. Same with anti-malware. Malware is different from viruses, and they check for different things. So malware protection is just as important as antivirus protection. Usually people think if I have one, I'm good with the other, but no, they do two different things. So you need both in place. And TechLab has a software package available that you can get both of them from us on a yearly basis, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then using good passwords. So a good password, we usually suggest having a chain of 2 to 3 words, maybe even 4, and misspelling one letter in each of them so that you can have a secure password that way. Adding in, numerals or special characters, that helps strengthen things as well. But having unrelated words is a good way to have your password. And then I think it's going to be mentioned later as well, but having a password program as well. We know that there's so many passwords for everything these days. It's a good practice to just instead of writing them down like on a Post-it note on your computer, so that if someone would see it, then they can know all your passwords, have a password protection thing. And then I'd also give you a step further. I would share that information with what the password is with your spouse. I think it would be good to either have, in a security thing somewhere, or if, that way if something happens to you, your spouse can get into the passwords and the things that you know how to get into as well. My husband and I have been talking about that. Even if you have like in your password manager, maybe you and your spouse or significant other, whoever, have one password that you use to get into the program, and then all of your passwords are there. So just keep that in mind too, that, if something would happen to you, that others could access the pertinent information that they would need as well. So, and in general, train and educate yourself about scams and cybersecurity. So thank you for all of you guys for coming and being willing to learn more about cybersecurity and the importance and the value that it has, because it is a matter of when, it's not a matter of if. So things that you can do there. Make sure that your IT is set up securely. So that is making sure that if you work from an office and from home, that connection between the two is secure. If you're not sure, please contact us and we can work with you. And just in general, know what you need to do on a regular basis to protect yourself. So make sure you have your passwords, make sure that they are secure, make sure you're running your scans, you have your backups, and in general, be careful of the information that you give out to others. It's not a good idea to email passwords to people in general. As I mentioned, use a good password manager. If somebody does need a password from you, have them call on the phone for it, and then you can get it that way. Especially do not email the username and the password together in the same email, because that right there, email is not encrypted pretty much ever. And so you need to be careful about that when you are talking with others. And in general too, if somebody asks you for something, be leery of that unless you initiate it. So if you're calling a company to make a payment, obviously you're making the call. But if somebody's calling you for something, then just kind of be aware and think cautiously as you are working on things as well. We talked about the importance of good passwords and some ideas for a good password. And then again, we have passwords for everything these days. So having a password manager is just a good idea as well to help you track all of that. Also be careful what you click on. It's so easy to just, click through things, next, yes, I agree. But if you don't read it, if you don't know what you're clicking on, and even on a site that you would think would be fine and safe, you never know. They could have some little piece attached into it that you can get affected with. As I mentioned too, backups are just so important. If you don't have a backup system in place, let Tech Lab know and we can work with you on that as well, so that you can get your backups not only on site but also off site. Again, if something would happen to the building that you're in, would you still be able to recover your data? You would need an off-site backup in order to make that happen. Also, if something happens to you that's weird, you can look at it independently. So that means like if you get something in an email and you click on the link, double check it a different way instead of just through the email. There's a couple ways, or ask somebody else, or maybe go to a different device or a different computer to do a double check on it, especially if something is looking weird or you're just not sure. It's so easy to be scammed these days, unfortunately, whether it's text messages, emails, phone calls, and there's lots of different methods too, as I'm mentioning. So overall, Tech Lab can give you a comprehensive software package that has antivirus, and malware and backups. And then if you're looking for a cybersecurity review and help you kind of make a plan or make remediation, we'd be happy to look at that with you. And we have some connections as well for cybersecurity training if that's something that you or your business would be interested in. So we'd be happy to work with you in any of those ways. And I wanted to thank you guys for coming today, and then let me know if you have any questions.
This was very helpful. Thank you for arranging it, Amanda, and thank you, Jackson, for all the details. I Had no idea that there was insurance. So that's very good.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mhm.
Very nice job, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yes, very nice. Thank you for the bullet points. I always love that.
I'm gonna go pick up my kids. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much.
I will second the idea of having a convoluted password. That sure makes things, a number of the programs say password weak, password moderate, password strong. Get up to a strong one, it saves a lot of time and effort.
That is true. It's also helpful to make sure, and I should have mentioned this, make sure the lock is on when you're making payments and stuff too. So on the screen at the top, make sure that lock is on. I am finding myself double checking that all the time, whether I'm on my phone or whether I'm on a computer, just make sure that lock's on, because that ensures that you're protected and have encryption, especially when you're answering or putting password information in. And then I saw one other thing. Oh, locking your computer, it can be helpful, because then if you walk away and somebody can't necessarily get in, yeah, that wasn't it, but that's okay. Yeah, so thanks you guys, I appreciate that.
I have a question. What's a good password manager? You mentioned that a few times.
Yeah, so we use KeePass, and that's, I can type it in here, KeePass. I've heard of good things about LastPass as well.
Okay.
So both of those are good to use.
Okay.
And I use KeePass at home too. So you can use it both for your business and for individuals. Others have had LastPass. Michelle, did you have another suggestion?
Yeah, 1Password is another one that I've heard of too. The thing you want to think about is that KeePass is locally based typically, which is to say that it's on one computer. I mean, you can put it in the cloud, don't get me wrong, but that is one consideration because I believe it's LastPass and 1Password, I believe, are both cloud-based. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
Someone asked me individually, Norton Password Manager. I believe that they have one as well. I haven't heard good or bad. I mean, it's Norton, so I would assume that they would be secure as well. I don't know if Michelle has anything to add that. I think the other note that I saw that I wanted to mention too is a pop-up blocker can be also a beneficial thing. Just, it's going to get rid of all those extra ads that are easy to click on and see. So that could be something else to keep in mind if you don't have a pop-up blocker. The one that we recommend is uBlock Origin, and I'm typing that in right there too. So, and that gets installed directly on your browser. It's an extension, so you have to go to the extension area and add it that way. If you get stuck or need something with that, we'd be happy to help with that as well. So that was the other note that I was going to mention.
Okay.
The other thing I wanted to add up real quick about the password manager is that you can also have your browser save passwords for you, or your phone save passwords for you. That can be a little difficult when you're changing devices. So if you're normally on your computer and then all of a sudden you've got to move to your phone for whatever reason, then you may have trouble getting into everything. But whatever you do in those cases where you're putting the password manager, there will be a password to get into it. And this is true of the browser as well. And this is true of the KeePass 1Password. The number one thing that I recommend is making sure that you have a great password for that you do not use anywhere else.
Okay.
Just because it's that if somebody gets into that, they will get into everything that you have.
Okay. Thank you.
You have to leave. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks for joining us, Bill.
Bye.
Yeah, I would agree with Michelle on the importance in not using that password for anything else, just and making sure that that's even stronger than some regular passwords. 4 or 5 words linked together that don't reference, that's definitely a critical thing. And then if you are saving passwords on your phone, make sure your phone is secure as well by fingerprints or a code, or just don't leave it unlocked, because again, if somebody picks up your phone randomly, it's so easy to leave your phone. I mean, the people left on here are all women, and we have no pockets, and so your phone gets left all the time. And so if someone finds your phone, they're going to have access to all your passwords. So keep that in mind too.
Alrighty.
Any other questions?
I just want to say it's 2:45, so if anybody needs to hop off, they can hop off. Otherwise, we're happy to take questions for a while yet.
Okay, it was good to see everybody. Take care. See you next time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for
Okay,
coming.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.